Hello, it's Katie. We're going to be making this bracelet today. So it's a very basic seed beading technique. We're going to be using 2 needles and I've called it my Rose Garden bracelet, and I've called it that because if you look carefully, all of those beads in the centre line are little roses, and I've also used rose quartz gemstones in this as well. So let's take a look at what we're going to be using. So as mentioned, I'll be using these Preciosa Candy Beads. These are the Candy Bead Rose, and I'm using those in a pale blue and a pale pink. I'll also be using some size 8s in a pearl Ceylon colour, and I'll also be using some size 11s, which are translucent light tea rose, and also some size 10 beading needles, and some I'll be using some £10 fire line, but you can use any beading thread that goes with the colour of the beads that you're using. So I've chosen £10 basically because that's what I've got in at the moment, so I'm using what I've got rather than go out and get new like everybody should be doing at the moment. Also, I'm using some 6mm faceted rose quartz, so they're absolutely beautiful. They're from Jewellery Maker. So I will add all the details that I possibly can to the description below, and I'm just going to move these out of the way and we'll make a start. Okay, so we're going to make a start. So I've got everything set out in front of me. I've got a piece of my thread which is around 6 feet long, and I've popped a needle on both ends of this one piece of thread. Okay, and then we've got my beads out. So for the pattern that I've done on the bracelet up here, I've used 5 of the pink and 4 of the blue. So that gives us a central point using an even number, but obviously it will depend on how it measures for you. So we'll measure this and pop the details underneath. We've also got our size 8s out, and we've got our size 11s out ready to use. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to pop 8 of our size 11s. So that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1 of our size 8s, and then we're just going to let those drop down just a little bit, and then find that 8, and with the opposite side needle come through that 8 as well in the same direction, and then hold 2 needles together, and then all you're going to do is pull this down until it forms a loop and you've got that 8 above it. Now that's going to be the loop where we have a connection at the end, so we can attach our clasp to it. Now we're going to be working with 1 needle at a time. So I'm just going to pop my right hand side needle just to one side for a moment. So my right hand side needle just in the mat over here, and on this side we're going to start adding some beads. So I prefer to add on my left side first because it's easier to do the next part on the right side, because I'm right-handed. So we're going to add 2 of our size 11s, 1 of our pinks, and then we're going to look at these because they're a 2-hold bead. I'm going to come through, I'm working on the left side, so I'm going to come through the left side of that bead with the rose design on top, and then we're just going to pull that through and let that come down. Don't worry about everything being tightened up or anything like that yet, because we'll do that at the other end. And then we're going to start building up our design. We've got that first one on, so we're going to pick up 2 11s, an 8, 2 11s, and then we're going to pick up a blue and come through that left hand side of that bead again, because we're working on the left side, and drop that down. Okay, now we're going to continue doing this same design until we've added all of our beads. So 2 11s, 1 8, 2 11s, and then our next candy bead, and continue until we've added all 9 of those candy beads all together. So I'm just going to pause for a second and get to that point, and I'll join you there. So just keep adding that. So we've got a loop at the bottom, 2 here, candy bead, 2 11s, 1 8, 2 11s, candy bead, 2 11s, 1 8, 2 11s, candy bead, until you get to the other end and finish on your candy bead, which will be a pink. Okay, I'll see you in a second. Okay, so I've got to that stage, and what I've done is I've just turned this around so that I'm working This is my loop at this end, and I'm working at this end. So all my candy beads are connected on one side, all on the same side. Now I'm ready to work back in this direction. Okay, but I need to add this loop here to match the first one. So we're going to add 2 11s, then a size 8. Let those drop down. And then we're going to add that 8 to make our loop. So 8 size 11s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we're going to come back down at that size 8 bead there. So back through that size 8 bead. So, and that will form our loop on the other side. Now this is the part where we just need to make sure it's not super tight, but a little bit more tightened up. So I'm just holding everything together and just pulling that through so that I can see that that's nice and tight again. So now I'm going to add the 2. So this is going to mimic the 2 that's at the other side of here. So adding 2 and coming through the other side of that hole there. Okay, and now my little tip, just to keep this all in place, not too tightly. We don't want to pull it so tight that it's going to kind of bend, but just as it is now, just laid nice and flat. That's good. Now just to stop it from kind of slipping and coming loose while you come down, I'm just going to take just a single line of thread up the side. So my thread's exiting here through this hole at the bottom. I'm just going to go through that hole again. It's a little bit like you can imagine a stop bead to be. So we're just pulling that through and taking that loop through, and that's just going to help us retain that shape and stop it from slipping or anything. So now we can start joining all these up. So all we're doing this time is adding 2 of our size 11s, and now because we've added that little bit of a safety mechanism there, we can actually pick it up and come through that 8. So 2 11s through the first 8 bead and pull through, and then 2 11s and through the next candy bead, like so. And that is going to give you those little crosses in the middle there. So I'll do that again. So that's 2 11s through that size 8 bead there in the centre, pull that through, and another 2 11s and through the candy bead. So you're going to continue that all the way until you get to the opposite end, and I will meet you back there in just a second. So I've almost got down to the very end, so I've worked my way going all through there, adding those 11s through those 8s and through those candy beads. And I just wanted to add, just make sure as you're coming down that none of those candy beads have flipped over, because if they flip over twice the thread could be twisted inside. So just try and keep it as flat as possible. And then I'm just going to add my last 2 size 11s coming through that last bead, through the last candy bead, and then my last 2, and then you're going to come up through that 8 and follow that loop around again. So you're reinforcing this loop around. So through that 8, through the first set of those 11s, and back down and back through that 8 again, and you can come all the way back through towards your first candy bead. Okay, so I'm on this side, so I'm going to continue working on this side, and I want to add a little frame around each of our candy beads now. So my thread is exiting my size 11 there, and I'm going to add 7 beads, and then I'm going to go take it back into the next of these size 11. So I'm going to add an 11, an 8, an 11, an 8, an 11, an 8, and another 11. So you'll have 7 beads. So you'll have 4 size 11s and 3 8s, and then you're going to come through following that bead path through the next 2 11s, through the next 8, and then up through the next 2 11s, like so. So we've got a little frame around the side here, and then we're going to do the same again. So 7 beads all together, alternately starting with an 11. So 11, 8, 11, 8, 11, 8, and another 11, and into the next set of 2 11s, through that 8, holding just to support, and then through the next 2 size 11 beads. So we're just adding a little frame around each of these. So what you're going to do is you're going to work up all the way up your bracelet, adding all your frames along this side, and then you're going to do the exact same with this thread and add all your frames around up this side. And I will meet you when we've got all that outer section done. So now I've worked all the way up this side, up all the way back down this side and back down this side, so using each thread taken from the other end down each side, and both of my threads are now at this end. So, and when I've got to the bottom, to the very end, when I've come around that loop again with that thread, every time we pass around that loop with the thread, we're adding extra strength to our design, and this part is where the top and the bottom, this part is where we need the extra strength, because that's where it's going to get anywhere against the clasp. So we're going to just start to add the gemstones now. So I've come around that loop and I've come down that size 8. So now I need to proceed down some more beads. So I'm going to work my way around until I'm exiting. So I'm coming around this side until I'm exiting this, the 3rd size 8 bead along that embellishment that we did on the side. So I've come all the way around until I've got to here. Now I'm going to pick up one of my rose quartz, which is a 6mm. Mine are faceted. It's entirely up to you which bead you use, but the size 6 will fit perfectly. And then I'm going to come through, so I'm going through this next set where we've got the 8s. So I've exited this 8 and come into this 8 here, and then making sure I work my way through to the next 8 on the outer. And then I'm going to add my next one. So all it is a matter of adding these just to fill in those gaps right the way along at each side. And you should have plenty of thread left with your 6 foot that we originally started with to do that. So I'll just add one more, and then I will work along and join you at the end. So just adding my next one so you can see how they're sitting. So they just sit really beautifully and perfectly in that gap that we've left. So you can see that's starting to take shape, and we've got all them gemstones sat in there. So I'm going to work up with this thread that I'm using all the way up to the end, and the same on this side. I'm going to add my gemstones all the way in along this side, and I'll meet you at the very end and we'll take a look at what we've got. Okay, so I've added all my gemstones onto the edges of my bracelet, and my bracelet is actually now complete. So remember, whenever we get to an end, we always go around that loop. So I've done that twice. I've got my ends still attached here. All I would do with those is run them through the design a little bit and just work them through the design and then snip off. It will be nice and secure. So if I just show you that a little bit closer up, you should be able to see all those beautiful rose candy beads, absolutely beautiful, and that rose quartz gemstones. So it's a really nice, I would call it a beginner's, very, very simple beading technique. It can be done in lots of other colours. I've also done it in this colourway. So this is more of a caramel latte colourway. It's still got those candy rose beads in the centre there, but I've used some Swarovski pearls in there, so it gives it a different colourway. And you can also get the candy beads that don't have any rose on them. You can get the plain candy beads, so they're quite nice to use with them. They're also from Preciosa, and it's a really nice, very basic, simple design, very easy to follow, because all you're doing is working with 2 needles and working up and down, up and down. So, and it does look like a slightly more complicated design when you look at it, but when you break it down, it's very, very simple. So thank you for watching my tutorial today. It's been a nice one, something a bit different to do. Click that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed already, because I'd like you to see more of my videos. Also pop me a like below if you've enjoyed the video. I'd really appreciate that. And I will see you again soon with lots and lots more of jewellery making tutorials. Bye!